I think I was close to get fired from Beverly Hills Cop because the first attempts of themes were not received so well.
She's kicking back.
Finally, she gets to the mic and she can't sing. You finally realized.
That's why. Now we get it.
So we kept you back there too, where we can't use any of this material. All right, hey, let's just do this thing and get out of here. Hey, welcome to a what do we call this here? Welcome back. It's an episode of some sort. So we'll just say, hey, welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of 1980s pop culture and its influence. Today, I can explain why I fumbled there in a moment. My name is Will, and joining me as always are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hello, guys. How are you?
Hi, guys. Good. Thanks.
No.
What?
No. Nobody goes to New York without me, sees the Back to the Future stage show, and just expects a little how do you do out of that. Are you kidding me?
I wish you'd been with us, John.
Well,
so do I. It looks like you guys had so much fun.
Yeah, and what I want to do is, I got to tell you, look, I want to save this and talk about it on an episode next week. But John, I got to tell you, even in considering talking about it, I don't know if Kat's been thinking this. I've been thinking like, I don't want to oversell it and make John feel bad for missing it.
Exactly. I want to be like, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah, it was fine. If you saw the movie, you're
That's
good.
fine. Yeah. Just There's no need to see this.
Just to, like I was watching a movie.
I'm so glad you guys got to see it. I wish I'd been there with you, but its reputation precedes it, and I know that it's probably was damn good. And so I have to.
The good news, John, it's on tour.
I'll see it eventually.
It's on tour next year.
Oh, okay.
Already, it's going to be a touring. So
there we go.
I'm sure it'll be
Excellent.
near you. Yeah,
Excellent.
but we'll tell you as much as you want to know on the next episode.
Okay. Next time. All right. Okay. For now, I'll pretend I'm over it until next week, and we'll talk about it some more.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Just pretend.
and the reason why I stumbled is because I said we weren't going to have a new episode this week. And hey, where you are, we're recording new content right now. This is actually new. Oh, by the way, don't forget, I think, are the boys of Gen X Grown Up off this month, July?
Yeah, we are.
You guys are playing stuff still, right?
That's right. Yeah, we're taking some of our greatest hits and spooling that into a best of album for the month. Yeah.
Right. So if you haven't listened to them yet, certainly this is a good opportunity to check out Gen X Grown Up John's other podcast because you'll get a flavor for what they do really well. And then you can go through their back catalog and join them again when they're back in August.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
So I stumbled because we weren't going to be here, but I want to be here. And the reason why is because, well, a couple of things. One, we've got an episode we want to play for you, which is, you're going to hear clips from 6 of our favorite previous interviews with 1980s musical artists. And we'll tell you about who you're going to hear from in just a moment. But what?
Wait, so like Star Trek: The Next Generation, is this the clip show because of the writers' strike? Is that what's happening here as well?
Yes. That's right.
Yeah. You told us about that.
Right. The Shades of Grey episode.
Yes,
We're doing it here on this show now.
Oh, now I want to cobble together clips of our voices from old episodes and see if I can't make it without an AI. This is human.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No pressure, quick turnaround. What could you do in this short amount of time?
If I took a month off and planned it out.
Right, then maybe.
You know what I think I would do, John, is like line up tracks from like 4 episodes of each of us, like layered deep, and then just jumping back and forth. See what I get from different shows.
Look for when somebody's talking to different places.
Yeah.
Let's grab that.
Line
just
it
make
up.
some nonsensical chaos out of
And
it.
it would make zero sense. Yep.
But you know what?
Yeah.
It would be hilarious.
No doubt.
We'd have to see. It might
I'd
be
listen.
maybe less work than the regular show. So
Yes.
the other reason we
That's the problem. You're overtasked trying to make it make sense. Quit it.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
You'll still get all the nonsense for less work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really thinking about it. All right. Hey, the other reason we wanted to come to you new though this week is because we have a couple of announcements that we didn't want you to miss out on. So first up, hey, listen for our chat later this week with author Michael Thomas Perrone. Michael's new novel, Danger Peak, it's another novel, like we talked to Sky McDonald a couple of weeks ago. It's another novel set in the 1980s, in particular in 1989. And
Yeah.
It tells the story of a young teen who's determined to honor his brother's passing by trekking his motorbike up the titular Danger Peak. And aided by his two best friends, it's somewhat of a little bit of a fetch quest, but it's chock full of in the best kind of way. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I like fetch quests, but it's
What's a fetch quest?
It's just a typical thing in video games where you have escort missions, you have fetch quests, you have you have like defeat someone quest kind of thing, and sometimes you'll talk to some non-player character and they go,
"Hello, cat. Glad you made it to the village. Would you please get me 7 chickens from the field, and I will reward you with a rupee?"
Right. So it's you have to go get something to then trade or satisfy something so you can progress. So it's a fetch quest. Yeah.
Got it. All right.
And
cool.
Movie reviewers, certainly the nerdy type folks that we watch that critique our current films, often use that to describe even elements of films where it's, go with the one thing. Speaking of which, on our next episode, let's talk about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny too. John, have you seen it? You've seen it now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All three seen it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of fetch questy. That's maybe an example you could recognize. Cat, it's go get the one thing, bring it to the other place, get the other thing. Anyway, this book though is somewhat of it is that in the best possible way, because I don't think I'm giving too much away, but in order to get this motorbike up this really treacherous hill, he wants to soup it up. So he's got to get some different things to, come up with some different ways to overcome the various, elements of the fire swamp, so to speak, in our 80s vernacular.
Right. Like they got to go get the gear shift of Thor or the bike chain of Damocles or whatever amazing thing a fetch quest would send you off to obtain.
Yes. And
Nice.
so it's chalk. And look, he's got 2 best friends. This reminds me of a lot of situations I was in as a kid, He's aided by his best friends to go on these different quests. It's chock full of nostalgia, and just because it's set in 1989, but they're dealing with bikes and going on adventures. But also, there's all these little subtle homages that remind me of films from the 1980s that I love. Like, oh, this is kind of like this. And I want to ask Michael to what extent he consciously did that, or it's imbued, because he's an 80s kid. It's just part of his, person. Anyway,
cool.
you definitely going to want to check it out, Danger Peak. But we're going to speak with the author, Michael Thomas Perrone, later this week. Listen for that. Okay, another announcement. Hey, we're going to go live this Wednesday, which is the date of, let's see, it's a 14, 13, 12th. We're going to go live this Wednesday, July 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to stream simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to record the next episode. So all these things I'm talking about, we're going to save for next time. We're going to talk about them then. And you can join us, give us your comments, your feedback on these different things. Did you see Back to the Future, the musical? Do you want to gloat about having seen it?
You'll have plenty in common with Will and Kat.
Join us and do that. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, join us on Facebook.
Do you want to hear Will backpedal on his predictions about Indiana Jones? Oh, just anything. Whatever you'd like.
John, you're right, John. You're absolutely right. I've been trying to pull those together. I'm trying to think if I do I take a sample of every time I said anything, or I might take my last. Remember, there was an episode where you said like, "This is what you predict," and you made a really reasonable prediction. I don't remember what it was, but it sounded reasonable. And so then I was motivated to downplay all of my, maybe earlier insanity, and came up with my reasonable prediction. Maybe I was just going to pull those two, but.
Right. We put it on a level, cause we predicted we needed to be like a 65 on a scale of 100.
Oh, that too,
to be at least satisfied, right? We talked about that too.
Yeah.
And Kat didn't need a number. She said she'd love it no matter what.
Yep,
anyway,
yep.
I'm going to burn off our Indiana Jones talk here, but we definitely have fertile soil that we can go back and harvest.
Stuff
Okay,
to talk about.
So hey, join us if you've got any thoughts about those things this Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, on Facebook or YouTube, you can go there and RSVP or whatever. Click a little thing that'll remind you that it's going to happen. And final announcement, I really want you guys to come and meet us at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh my
End of
gosh.
this month.
Oh, man.
It's like
Cannot wait.
Is it 2
That's
weeks
less
away
than
now?
3
Almost.
weeks.
Yeah.
It's less
Yeah.
than. It's
No, it's not
almost
less than
2
2
weeks
weeks.
away.
Like
It's
two-
no, it's less than 3. Less than 3 and almost
Yeah,
2. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
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 Kat's rounding down. That's what I would do too. I'm that excited. It's fine.
I need a little more time. George is still working on the script. We need a little more time. I'm rounding up. So 4 weeks from now.
So, yeah, Southern Fried Gaming Expo.
Yep.
You can go to gameatl.com to see all of the cool stuff. I mean, it's called Southern Fried Gaming. Southern Fried because it's in the Southeast. It's in Atlanta at the Waverly Hotel right there in downtown Atlanta. And look, it's all about, it used to be called a Game Room Expo, but now it's board games and vintage computer games and vendors and like exhibits and it's just the best people end up coming to this show, and you have such a great time. And it's all weekend long. It's July 28th through the 30th.
Very cool. Yeah. My wife asked, she said, so, because 1980s Now is doing a panel there. We're doing one of our true crimes. And it's about a true story that happened regarding a game or a series of games in the 1980s. Gen X Grown Up's doing the panel there. So my wife's, she wanted to come, and my family's like, hey, we'll come too, because you're going to need somebody to sit in that auditorium listening to your panel. I was like, good. We'll have at least 2 or 3 people. And then if you count Kat, John, and myself, we got 6 people. We're going. It's a party.
There you go. 6 people.
That's all you really need.
But my wife did ask, hey, it's gaming. Is it just video games, or is there stuff that we can do? And I assured her, just like you said, John, that there's plenty for everybody to do. If you like anything.
If you like board games at all, and we've talked about them, they have like a library of board games. And if you want to play something, you can walk up, and they have different policies, different times. It used to be just like you hand them your driver's license and they hand you a game for as long as you want to play it. You can sit at a table, put up a little flag that says looking for players, and other random cool people that are also looking to play a game will just sit down. You get to know people, play a game. And it's just a weekend of turn off your brain and enjoy that kind of casual stuff that usually is a break from your day. It just becomes your day.
I thought he was going to say turn off your phone, but don't you need the brain for the games?
I might
phone's got to
brain.
stay on.
I suspect I will enjoy doing something gaming, but I'm only going to stand in the same space with the 2 of you. Like I could leave right after that. I'd be like, okay, goal accomplished. So that's my main.
And John, she's being kind by including me. All she talks about is she wants to hug John. It's making me feel uncomfortable how often she talks about hugging you.
She just sat next to you for the whole Back to the Future show. I'm sure she's had enough of you.
Right.
And he's probably had enough of me.
I feel like
you'll have to sit in the middle at the panel.
I'm going to approach John separately and ask him.
Is it okay? I mean, she keeps saying she's going to hug you. Are you comfortable with this? Blink twice if you need help. Something. Gotta anticipate.
He just blinked, everybody. He blinked twice.
Don't say it out loud. Now Kat knows. Damn it.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
I'm on to you.
We're going to need a new code now.
Hey, speaking of codes, use the Gen X Grown Ups discount code for $5 off your ticket when you go to GameATL.com to get your ticket. What's that code again, John? Just Gen X Grown Up, right?
Gen X Grown Up, all one word. And you save $5 for every ticket you buy. If you buy it for the family, $5 per.
Yeah.
Giddy up.
I don't remember what the ticket price either is, but that's a good percentage. That's a good percentage off the cost.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It depends on when you buy and how far ahead of time. So buy now. Avoid the rush. Save money.
Yes.
All right. Hey, enough announcements. So here we go. You're going to hear from us here. So again, it's a compilation of clips, 5 to 10 minutes or less than that, each from 6 of our favorite musical guests from the 1980s, including Taco, Sir Mix-a-Lot, Taylor Dane, Chris Butler from The Waitresses, one of my favorites, Harold Faltermeyer, and all 3 ladies of Expose.
Nice.
Just to orient yourself so you know who you're hearing from, you'll hear a little musical clip, one of their hits right before each of the interviews, so you know who you're about to hear from. If you'd like to hear more from these artists, we've got entire, full-length interviews from each of them. You can find those conversations with them on any podcast platform, including the one you're listening to right now. Just search by their name. And while Expose closes out our special episode with what sounds like the inspiration for our show name, we'll first hear from Taco, who tells us how Puttin' on the Ritz became a hit after he had moved on with his life and was just as surprising to him.
Yep.
As it was to the rest of the world, how very big it became. Here's Taco.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz.
And I was surprised to read that you hadn't, like you said, you weren't exposed to the American Songbook until later, and that you hadn't even seen the performance of the original performance of Putting on the Ritz, which was by Clark Gable. And no, actually, that wasn't the original one. The original one was before that in Putting on the Ritz.
Harry Richmond.
Right. But you hadn't seen the Clark Gable one until it was in That's Entertainment, which was like a 70s film that MGM put out, which a compilation of different clips.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I would have thought that would have been something you would have had grown up seeing.
No, not so much growing up seeing the movies. It was more, listen to these songs at home.
Yeah.
Listen to all the great swing masters and Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, all that. But movies was much later. Right. And because my dad also went with his boys, to see cowboy movies.
Right. So there's been 3 film versions at least. Certainly the most iconic is probably Fred Astaire's version in Blue Skies. But Clark Gable's is your favorite. But it seems like your delivery and your iconic version of Putting on the Ritz is more like Harry Richmond in that sort of, 1930s sort of more flat, deadpan sort of radio style.
Well, I like the crooner era. And what inspired me also, we had done Chicago in Hamburg, Germany, at this theater. And after my debacle, I don't know, is that an English word for you?
Yes, yes.
With German singing, I had to come up with a complete new image. And I had ripped up this contract, and because I was very unhappy, because it would have meant singing German all of my life. And so it was, going back in quarantine and thinking up a whole new image. So I thought of what I did in Chicago, with the grease paint and the hair slimmed back, and that way nobody recognized me anymore. And and with the new Neue Deutsche Welle, the Nouvelle Folk music coming up, I thought it would be really cool, to take the classic American songbook and combine that with the electronic music.
And what was there something particular about putting the American songbook, for folks to know? I mean, it's dozens of classic songs. Was there something about Putting on the Ritz that you connected with, or that you thought would be most or best to be adapted to this, new technology?
The package was perfect because I always think visual. And I like the visual thought of Ritz.
Right.
See, when I released Ritz in Germany, the companies weren't really interested in it. I was signed to RCA, but it was one of these deals, okay, you buy my artist and we'll take the other artists too. I was one of those.
Oh, you were one of the other artists then, you're saying?
Yeah, they, I wasn't their top favorite or anything. So it was just put out, and so the first release, and to create a little excitement, I made this deal with big apartment stores where I would be put into the window as a puppet.
What?
And we had awesome. Then we had this electronic music going, and when enough people were attracted, on the street, I would say, "Okay, turn the tape on."
Not moving your mouth, yeah.
Yeah. As a robot, I do the rhythm, and after that, I would do an autograph hour, and
wow.
But all that didn't help, and then I opened a sportswear store with my father because I was really frustrated. Here I have a whole new image, a new song, and nobody really gave a yes. And then about half a year later, I got a phone call from Sweden, RCA Sweden, and they said, "Please come over. We want you to do promotion over here." And I go, "Oh my God." And I had nothing to lose. So I go to Sweden, and there's this Rolls at the airport. And I just had this single. I just had Ritz, and on the B side, it was After 8.
Right.
And and I went to the Top Disco there at night, and oh my God, like the guys were all in tuxedos, the girls in evening gowns, and I go, oh my God, this is a big thing over here. And I ended up singing the A and B side 10 times. And when I left Stockholm to go back to Hamburg, the LP After 8 was already gold status.
Wow.
But I didn't have an LP.
Right. Oh, that's what you have 2 songs, right?
Yeah.
So you had to scramble and now write like a handful of other songs then, I guess, right?
Yeah. We worked 24 hours, really, around the clock just to get this After 8 out. So it's a very funny story.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't imagine that feeling, to think that you're going about your life in one direction when the popularity for something you created is just growing in this area that you're unaware of, and then suddenly have this surprise sort of thrust on you. That's got to feel amazing.
It was mind-boggling, because for me, the whole theme Ritz was over,
Yeah.
But after Stockholm, it was like, oh my God, what have I started? Yeah. And then, whilst composing or writing the lyrics, then it was time to start thinking, oh my God, it has to be congruent. The whole LP concept, it has to be some kind of this weirdo who came out of a time machine from 30. And that was the fun thing, creating that.
Right.
And before I knew it, I was on the road. We're talking 80s. Where, we didn't have MTV. We didn't, let alone this mass media. So I had to be there. Right. I had to fly to all these countries, and that was the hard work.
I like big butts, and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. Now when a girl walks in with an itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung.
We've spoken to a few people on the show about punk rock. And one of the things associated with punk rock is the DIY nature of it. That, in the late 70s, early 80s, you had folks in garages making their own music and, sort of a rejection of rock and roll from the 50s. But I don't hear much talked about the DIY nature of hip hop, because you had folks in bedrooms, kitchen tables, making their own music. But it's fascinating to me. It's like, I don't recall or remember or know how the information got passed around pre-internet, that folks could learn how to create this music on their own.
I'm so glad you brought this point up, because I've been a DIY guy from day one.
Yeah.
And we everybody in hip hop was. And so they'll say, well, they had garage bands. Yeah, but those garage bands got signed to deals and then they went to big studios.
Right.
Yep. Even when the rappers had deals, they were still DIY. They were still programming drum machines in the bedroom, sometimes printing tracks in the bedroom and then taking it in. Depends on what era we're talking about. Yeah. But in my era, I did everything I could at home on a 4-track cassette deck. And that didn't sound good enough to go to wax. Yep. So I ended up recording with a guy named Terry Date, who did a lot of the early grunge stuff also. And he taught me a lot about mixing. And then I started to do it myself. I found a MCI 2-inch tape machine. It was broken. The guy just wanted us to move it. I moved it right to my house. Went inside of it. I found that it had a DC power supply. So basically it was turning AC to DC, and it was, I want to say it was some weird number like 48 volts or something like that. And that's all that was wrong with it. I fixed, because I've been in the electronics since I was 13 years old. I fixed it, and the rest is history. That's when I started recording, making actual records in my basement.
So does that mean, had you not gone into music, that your future may have been in electronics?
Oh yeah, that's easy to say. If I took this camera and walked in I'm in my studio now, but my other 2 rooms over there is all electronics. Yeah. I built RF amplifiers, all kind of stuff, but that's really what got me into this music. I mean, my studio is full of stuff that I wired. Nobody wired anything here, right? Because I want to know it.
On your early, and folks may think it was just, sort of consistent with the hip hop braggadocio that on your albums where it would say written, composed, produced, programmed, performed, and engineered by Mix-a-Lot. It's in fact true.
Yeah.
So was there a reason, was it that, not that you just necessarily didn't trust anybody, but maybe the quality control was easier if it was just you, or did you not have a circle that maybe included like-minded people who knew about the genre or the technology?
Dude, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford it.
Yeah. Oh,
I couldn't afford to go into a studio and pay somebody, a couple $100 an hour. I got to pay $150 for a reel of tape.
Yeah.
So I just said, you know what? I got a tape machine. I could buy the tape.
Yeah.
And I tried to figure it out. My first 2 records sounded horrible. I ain't gonna lie to you.
I don't think so.
Well, that's because you like me.
Yeah.
No, it sounded bad, but I started to learn it. When I got around Terry Day, at that time I could afford it. And he said, dude, this music is still probably better done at your house.
Yep.
And he showed me what compression was and how to use it and all that stuff and gates and reverbs and how to use a reverb send as opposed to running a vocal straight through the reverb and then trying to dial in the balance in the reverb itself.
Wow.
As opposed to a send, down the mixer chain or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, I learned all that stuff from him. And then every album I've done, every single one, I've done at home.
Wow. I talked to Harold Faltermeyer a few months ago, and he said he still has his original gear. Do you still have your original gear from Swaz and Seminar?
I have some of it.
Yep.
I have some of it. I do have a 4-track cassette, but it's not the original one, which was a Polaris. Think about it. Polaris makes jet skis. They had made a 4-track cassette deck. So I still have a 4-track cassette deck. I got rid of my Fostex. I had a Fostex 1/4-inch reel-to-reel, right? I had one of those and got rid of all that stuff, but I rescued some of that old stuff, and my God, it was terrible. I can't believe how bad it sounds. I listen to it now and it's like, damn, somebody in mastering did a good job because wow.
So, I read that with Square Dance, the reason you did that sort of chipmunk voice, where you sped it up or you slowed it down and then, you sped it up, I guess, was because you didn't really want to be a rapper.
Right.
But at some point, it seems like you do. You start sort of finding your own or finding your sort of, voice, I guess.
I didn't want to rap. I wanted to be, because you got to remember the early days of hip hop, the Sugar Hill Gang aside, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. You had DJ Cheese. All the DJs were the stars. Right. So, they would do songs about the DJs. So I wanted to be the DJ, right? So I worked with a couple other guys and that didn't work out. And I said, well, I still want to make songs. And at the time I was selling tapes, like remix tapes. I lived in the projects. I lived on the bottom floor so people could just knock on my window. It was like buying dope. They just buy, they'd give me like 10 or $15. And I do literally 45 minutes of nothing but mixes with their names in it and I do customized redos of songs and put their names in them. And I would do all that stuff and sell them. And that's kind of what made me get into home recording.
Right.
And to go back to the Square Dance thing, you're right. I slowed it down and sped it up because I recorded the song high speed, right? The whole song, but it sounded normal.
Right.
Then I turn the speed down and I do the rap.
Yeah.
Now I'm your big mall dropper. That's how you did it. And by you sped it up, it sounded fast.
Right.
I didn't want anybody to know it was me, and I didn't think it was going to sell. And then Square Dance sold, like 50,000 copies, and it's like, oh, now I got to try to do this live? Yeah. Hell no.
And you talked about how, Dee Snider went to your high school. And so he was one of the
Dee, yeah. Alumni. Well, and then Twisted broke, yeah.
And you tell the story about how they would have alumni come back and sing with the choir. And so here's, suddenly Dee Snider's
Melinda Edwards was our choir teacher.
Right. So what's it like to meet Dee then years later and find out, he's a supporter, more than a supporter of yours, years after you've seen him in your...
Well, because of my producing partner was Rick Wake.
Right.
So Rick's like 19, living in a basement in Belmore in this recording studio. So I tell you, I'm working with these bands at like 18, 17, 18, Felony. Then I'm working with this other band out of upstate New York, and we're working in the city primarily. And then I'm like 19, 20, and then I have demos now between Felony and this other band, which is called The Next. And that's more like,
that was the new wave.
Yes, wave, if you will, right? Not really punk rock. It's more wave. And it's everything from the city. But this guy's a really talented songwriter I'm working with, Scott. And our stuff's getting heard. And we get flown out to LA, and we start working with a couple of producers out there. And we're getting our shot with a couple of record companies. remember, it's all about the record companies then, So now we're at like 82, 83. We're shooting all these weird record, just doing our demo stuff and getting a shot and doing, what is that crap for record companies? When you sit in a room and they come all down. Remember that? And you play in these, like the Pyramid or any club. I can't even remember. We did all this shit.
Like a showcase.
Damn.
Showcases. Christ. We'd send out demo tapes at showcases. Oh, my Lanta. And I played every club by then in New York with this band because I devoted probably another, year and a half. And then I was definitely the lead singer there, but we had a full-on band. It was great, and the great songs, but it was like, here I am, 21. I'm like, screw this. Answered an ad where it was like straight to 12-inch. And by then, I was like in every club. I mean, I played every club from RT Fireflies, Bitter End, Bottom Line, you name it, CB's, everything with this last band. I'm 21. I answer an ad, full-on go to straight to 12-inch. KTU is broken. Kiss is now alive and well and living in New York, the station.
Right.
I'm living in New York. I'm faring well. I'm always driving in. I'm living in my mother's house. I took it over. My mother's living in an ashram. And then I'm just living in the clubs, It was unbelievable.
So it seems like, you grew up, like you talked about with your little transistor radio, you loved Stevie Wonder, you loved, Motown, you were exposed to musicals, all these types of different music. It seems like as you're trying to come up, you were willing to sing with whatever band you thought, I guess, you fit with.
I sang, right? I mean, I started, those were original bands.
Right.
Like, who gets the opportunity? I wasn't singing cover bands at all. So you have to understand, right out the gate, I like, a guy comes up to me, I'm working at 18 in a health food store. I got to make money. And I'm like, the guy comes up to me, he went to high school with me, and he goes, well, you look at you like, everybody knew I sang. He goes, you want to join a band? I'm in this band. Da, 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 da. I'm the drummer. I go, yeah, that's how it works.
Yes.
I go, dude, of course. And he goes, well, Leslie, like, I'm joining this band with these guys, but it's original music. I go, dude, sweet. He's like the guy I know from high school, and he's 2 years older than me. And I go, I'm working in the health food store. I'm going to Nassau Community and studying voice, and I'm still going to my coach in the city. And he goes, yeah. I go, I'm not going away to high school. Screw it. I'm going to stay here. I'm like in New York City. It's like the best school, my best teacher in the world is here. I'm going to go he's out of Juilliard. What am I doing? But it wasn't really the first band. It was the band that I went into, and that was Felony. And when that fell apart, I was like, he's like, don't worry. Like, and I go, when I made the record, Tell It to My Heart, and that's when the shit hit the fan. Because that was just me and Rick. Right. That's how I met Rick.
And at that point, are you, again, you sang a lot of different genres of music. You loved a lot of different genres of music.
Sure
you
did.
land on the more, I guess more freestyle.
Never thought in 1,000 years I'd be doing dance music. Okay. Or that Tell It to My Heart would be considered a dance song.
Yeah.
And that all I knew was I heard Whitney Houston, and I heard Aretha Franklin, and I heard Natalie Cole on this station called Kiss FM. And I go, whoever is doing these women, whoever is playing these songs with these big voices, because you had to understand, there was Alicia came out, and there was small voices coming out and songs that started getting a lot of airplay. Right. This was really kind of mid-'80s. And then there was big voices with great songs getting airplay. Let's take Sade out of the mix because she was just so unique unto herself. But she was mid-'80s, okay? And then I go, he gets big voices. And Rick goes, don't lose sight. Now, I connected with Rick Wake because he heard my little demo tape of me with this band called Felony and me with this, and he called me up. And Frank DeSaro gave him my tape. And it was from Frank and I playing in Felony together. So Frank introduced me because he said I did a session with this guy, Rick, and that's how I met Rick Wake. Rick Wake is the one who was living in the basement, and Dee's the one that took Rick under his wing and was working up already, had broke with Twisted Sister and was working with Rick in one of the studios because Rick was already brought over from Europe, from London, and was 19. I was 21, and he met Dee, and Dee took him under his wing. Rick had a very likable, big farm boy look, and everybody liked him. He was English. God knows they thought he could perform. He was an engineer. So Alicia had done some tracks in the basement or whatever in this little shithole studio in Belmore. That's all I know. And somehow Frank knew Rick. Somehow he gave Rick my demo because Frank and I worked together in Felony. That's all that happened. And Rick heard my voice and just was like, bing, bing, bing. Here's this unknown chick, liked my voice. And all I know is in my heart, I'm like, whoever sings and gets, and in my mind, I was like, I didn't know it was Clive Davis. I didn't know anything. All I know is I heard Whitney Houston. I heard Aretha Franklin, who resurrected her career, right? And Natalie Cole. And I go, whoever gets this, gets that. Tell it to my heart. A year later, I'm 23 years old. Boom, gets signed by Clive Davis. I produced that song with Rick Wake. We find it. My dad pays us, gives me the money to produce it. And that's after Rick and I put out 2 12 inches already under Leslie. Right. And then we come up with, in a baby book, we've already been produced 2 singles through, one through Bolognese Studio, right. And then one on our own. And that was Tell It to My Heart.
I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I know what boys like. Boys like.
When you talked about, when you made that comment about, not knowing not to play a solo for 3 hours, I realized something now about your music because there's something about your arrangements. I mean, they're not some of the, time signatures are, you're not cut. It's not always cut time. You're playing with dissonance and assonance, in some of the things, but there's something practical about it in a sense that a commercial recording would be. Not that your goal was to be commercial or, get these songs in the top 40, but there is something, a balance there. Yeah, that's practical.
Thank you. That's ace listing because, the arrangements and the puzzle is my personal pleasure. I had no reason to continue to write songs after the band broke up other than it is fun. It is, and the fun part is to arrange. And, there's a little hole here for a little something. And, and it can be annoying because it doesn't follow regular song patterns or beats or whatever. And Waitresses, you're absolutely right. Bar of 3, bar of 2, even in one of the more simpler songs, Christmas Wrapping, I have the pleasure of being asked to play every year with a local band or two. And there's a break in the song. We have to play it on time. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's not how it went. It goes, da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it ends, it slips a 60th every bar, but it winds up on the 1. Oh, yeah, how clever. Andy Partridge, of all people, wrote a little letter, and I got to talk with him a little bit, and he pointed that out. He said, I know what you did there. I know, Mr. Buckler. I know what you did.
Did you, I guess nowhere in our conversation is how you learn to do all these things. Is it just, are you able to take in all these things and like a computer almost just spit out something? Not that it's, scientific in that sense. I'm sure it comes from a place of divine inspiration, but.
Well, that's the benefit of an education. Being in the numbers band is goddamn education. Listening to Little Feat, listening to the song Cold, 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 and when it comes to the instrumental break, tell me where the 1 is. You won't be able to hear the 1. Unless you're really sharp, you won't know where the 1 is. It turns around. The Little Feat being the perfect example, or Beefheart being the perfect example of it makes sense, but it's really strange. And Little Feat especially, they almost, their accents and, almost every subbeat is covered somewhere. And with usually an accent that's off time. And in the middle of Cold, 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 they do this turnaround and the time flips backwards, and probably not intentional, but there's a part where I swear they get lost. Or they lose the 1, but it's so wonderful. You just keep going. How did I don't know. You pick up on it. You pick up on it in avant-garde music. You pick up on it in orchestral stuff. You pick up on it in jazz, kind of. I have a huge hole that I need to work on. I have a lot of friends, North Jersey popsters, all right? Amazing people. They are like the masters of the Brian Wilson type chord progressions. They're incredible. But I would really like to master or just know more about what is going on in these chord progressions. You know, how did you get from this key to this key? So if you think I know what I'm doing, that's very flattering. Thank you. I guess I picked up on enough stuff and am uneducated enough to take more risk or try and find something. Thankfully.
When you're composing a piece, you know, you mentioned Axel F, or the soundtrack for Beverly Hills Cop. Do you approach it at that point as you would a more traditional score?
This was a very difficult job because we were working with close to zero examples of how we would do it, and I was sitting in front of a white page. I didn't know what to do, and I was experimenting. But this is the great thing, that when you start experimenting on something and you fail sometimes, that's what makes you create something really new, you know. And you just have to dare. Just go for it. And I know I think I was close to get fired from Beverly Hills Cop because the first attempts of themes were not received so well. Plus, there was the general problem that a comedy these days was done by classical composers like Goldstein or Hamlisch or whomever, you know, and they used like a Hanna-Barbera style orchestra, you know. Right. Very, very well done. Very, very, very clever instrumentated. Very well played. Very well composed. But in a way, old-fashioned. It was done so many times, you know. Right. And the producers and the director of Beverly Hills Cop said, we have to do something new. It has to be not this kind of music. So just sit down and try something. Right. So I was trying, and I think it was the fourth or fifth attempt of a theme, which I played to them, and it was still like I don't know, what do you think? And you know how this is, you know, nobody dares to commit, you know, because you don't know, does this really work? Plus, we had the problem that the studio got nervous that we are not using an orchestra and we are not using the union type situation which you had in the comedies before. Even Eddie Murphy's Trading Places before was done with classical music, you know. Right. So it was very awkward to convince the studio. But I had Bruckheimer and Simpson, sure, and of course the marvelous Martin Brest, who had a very clear idea of what he wanted. And when I played him the first theme, which then turned out to be the theme of Axel F, he was the first one to say, that's it. That's exactly what we need. It has it's modern. It's R&B-ish. It's funky. It's clever. It fits the character, and it's very versatile. You can change it in every way, you know. So I had a friend, and I got the support from the three of them, and so we were able to convince the studio.
Yeah, it's when I think about that theme in particular, you know, it's like to your point, it's like jazz. I mean, the intervals are kind of like, you know, jazzy, but also this sort of, it feels a little bit like the character could be sneaking around on an adventure, you know, this sort of, you could feel like he's tiptoeing or he's on a chase scene. It's just,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very exciting. And you know, what's interesting is as a child, you know, I guess I was a teenager when the film came out, it didn't strike us as new. It struck us as just, yes, this is exactly, right. It just felt like that's, you know, looking back, you realize how innovative it was. I don't think folks realize, you know, much in the style of, I guess, in Giorgio Moroder, that in addition to, you know, scoring a number of films in the 1980s, you also were responsible for writing some of the songs specifically that were the ultimate hits for some of these films. Folks most associate you with the Beverly Hills Cop. Is it, I don't want to say frustrating, that sounds so negative, but this idea that there's so much more music that you've contributed that maybe folks don't appreciate?
The thing is that with blockbuster and a innovation like Beverly Hills Cop, you made something happen, and you made something new. You created something which was not there before. Right. So everybody wanted to have that. So I got tons of offers of similar movies. One of them I did, which was Fletch, which was pretty funny. And Fletch was in between Beverly Hills Cop and Top Gun. So I thought, well, I'm gonna do that, and it's a similar texture. It's of course different again, but it's somehow similar. But then the offers you're getting is always a stereotype. You're getting another cop movie, another buddy cop movie, another. Then you can the next one I got then was Whoopi Goldberg's Fatal Beauty, you know, and then I said, this is it. I'm not doing any of this anymore. And the problem is, I always wanted to do something where I could show my talent as a classical composer as well. Right. But nobody believed that I could do it. I was like typecast, and this for me was actually the biggest frustration. And this was what made me leave the Hollywood in the early 90s, because I only got the same movies all the time, you know. Right. And then of course it gets boring, and you start to repeat yourself. And the last one I did was Cuffs with Christian Slater, and then I was sitting there and I was listening to one of the themes, and I said, what the hell am I doing? I'm copying myself, and this can't be. So I have to refrain from that, you know. I want to move on to something else. I want to clear my mind. I want to do some really different, you know. And then thanks God I had the offer of producing the Pet Shop Boys with their so famous album Behavior, and this led me out of the whole cop movie genre, and I was so happy that I could do that, and I'm still happy that I have done it.
So Joy, you mentioned, and Jeanette, one of you brought up how you hearing it on the radio for the first time. So you guys, if it comes on the radio now, you're in a car, you're somewhere, do you still listen? Do you change the channel? Do you sing along?
Okay, I don't want to answer that question.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll listen to the whole thing. I think it depends on what song it is and definitely what kind of mood I'm in. Yep. But I love it. Like if I have 2 boys, and if I have my sons in the car with me, I'm like, hey, look, your mom's on the radio.
Right.
So that's kind of fun.
Is it impressive or embarrassing to them?
Different. I think sometimes, well, if it's just us, they're not embarrassed. If it's just us 3 in the car. But I think at one point, one of my sons, my younger of the 2, was not very revealing about what his mom did. But my older son, I think, always was kind of proud of it, you know.
You guys, the other day, probably a couple of months ago, actually, my daughter was at a party, and she was in New York, and they're holding the Let Me Be the One vinyl, the record, like the big, and she's like just dancing around with her friends and singing and having a big old time. I'm like, it's like when she was younger, she wasn't really, but now she's so proud of her mom, and she just, her 2 second moms, and she's so supportive, and she's singing as well now, doing her own thing. But it was so funny. It is really funny. My daughter said to me when she went to college, please tell my roommate to take Seasons Change off of her ringtone. I can't take it anymore.
I love that.
Well, was that a coincidence?
I don't know. I'd have to ask.
Well,
it was funny though.
Yeah, speaking of vinyl, Violet, you want to show them what you have there?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I pulled out most of my records.
Oh, she's got it, yeah.
Oh, look at those.
I have my tape of what you know, the CD.
Oh my God.
All my 45s are at college, so.
Isn't the album or the vinyl album with the white cover?
That's
We're All in Jeans. Is that an import? Was that ever released here?
It is.
It's the 12-inch single of Tell Me Why.
Maybe it was. I think that was, we did the photo shoot in the UK, but yes. And that, we really lament the loss of that big artwork on albums. And then it just shrunken. It became like this shrunken little, I think we all really love to pull out the sleeve of that really big record.
That's why I love records.
Right. But I think they're coming back. They're coming back. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a statistic recently where I think it was vinyl outsold CDs for the first time since some year in 1980s.
Right.
It's just
Yay. Now, Violet, do you have a record player, Violet?
I do. I have VHS tapes, cassettes, the whole thing.
Oh my God. She is legit.
You're a trip. You are too much. That's awesome.
She is living like she's in the 1980s or more authentically than me. I don't have any of those things.
I try, make up for lost time.
Yeah.
So I had 2 questions. What was your favorite song you recorded in general? It could be anything. And then what is your favorite to perform?
Performing Point of No Return is just the energy that we get from the crowd is just beyond. And I remember we used to do this dance. Remember when we used to our back would be to the stage, guys, and our arms would go out in a big circle, and we would all be looking at the back of the stage and then hear them screaming and kind of eyeballing each other like, oh my God, this is so cool, So that was really cool. And it's still to this day, it's the one that gets everybody just amped up.
Yeah.
Is there just a moment of silence? Your backs are there, and then you hear do 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 do, and then
yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that's the most favorite song to perform because it's sort of like the show leads up to that. And that's generally the last song. And it's like everybody anticipates it. We finally get there and it never disappoints.
Yeah, everyone's dancing and it's just it's a great, very energetic feeling to be up there and performing that song. I have to agree with the girls.
We actually segued into a dance remix of it. Chris Cox did for us. And it's amazing. Jeanette holds this note out and it's just like, whee!
I remember that. I was like, oh my gosh,
great, right?
awesome.
Yeah, I love that. If we don't do it during a show, I'm like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean we're not doing it? We got to do it. I just loved it. That made it really rock for me. I love just bringing it from the 80s into into now.
Ah, that's funny. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
I got to remember, were we 1980s now before I spoke with them? Huh. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So does that make this show a remix or a sample, or does that make Expose a remix of us? I don't know. I'm very
It's an interpolation.
Ooh, thank you, Kat. Interpolation. We want to make sure that we don't owe anybody money. Whatever it is, that one. All right. Hey, guys, thanks for hanging with us again, listening to these clips from these interviews. If you want to hear the whole thing, you can find them on our podcast right in this app that you're listening to right now. Don't also forget, we're going to be live this Wednesday, July 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and or Facebook, whichever you want to come and join us. Talk about what? I almost said Beetlejuice. We could talk about Beetlejuice, John. But Back to the Future, the musical, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and so much more.
Yep.
All right, folks. We will talk to you next time on 1980s Now.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the 80s Ruled Network. Visit the 80s Ruled on Facebook for more 1980s awesomeness.